Hi everyone, welcome to the session of this month. And we have two wonderful speakers with us, Aditi and Deveeshree. So I would like to introduce Aditi first, who's going to be talking about vulnerability assessment. So Aditi, over to you.
Yeah, hi. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where you're joining in from. I'm Aditi Kulkarni. I presently work with SAP Labs out of Bangalore in India. And my role here is in the team of product security response, which is what I'm going to be also presenting about today. And yeah, previously I used to do security static assessments and vulnerability assessments, and I'm majorly interested in web application security. Recently I've also developed some interest in OSINT, so yeah, I also play CTF sometimes, so that's also something I'm picking up on lately. And you can find me on Twitter. Probably in my presentation, I also have the handle mentioned, so you can follow me there. And yeah, I think that's about me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, go ahead, Deveeshree.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deveeshree Nayak. I'm currently a faculty at University of Washington, Tacoma. I teach cybersecurity and information technology in bachelor's and master's program as well. And before that, I was in an industry doing geographic information system. My educational background is computer engineering, criminology with a cybersecurity context, and information system. I'm a information security researcher. I work both in research and application oriented. Also do cyber investigation and crime based on where I role at. So I have a little bit of everything in security and information technology, computer science, programming in general. So I can give me any topic. I'll maybe have some knowledge related to information security, but I'm open to learning as well.
Perfect. We also have Zoe on the call today. Hi, Zoe.
Hi, Vandy. How are you? Congratulations on board.
Oh, thank you so much.
I have to say that again. Everybody, she's the optimal candidate. I mean it, and it makes sense. I'm so proud and happy. Okay. I'm gonna stop now and let the speakers speak.
Yeah. So now we will start off with the Deveeshree. Deveeshree, over to you. You can start sharing your screen. I will be facilitating you. If you have any challenges, feel free to ping me on the chat window or ping me on WhatsApp, and I'll be able to help you out.
Okay, sure.
You can hit the share button.
Yes, I am looking at my presentation.
Sure.
Is it, I don't know what happened. I think computer got, I'm not able to share my screen. Aditi, is it possible you can go first?
Aditi, would you be able to go?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear the last part. Yes, I can go first.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know what happened.
Yes, okay. So then let me share my screen.
Sure. You're on the spotlight now.
Yes. Okay. Tell me when you can see it.
Yes, we can see it. We can make it as a presenter mode.
Okay. And I am going to make it slideshow mode in my PPT now.
Yes.
So it's good, right? Okay, fine.
All good.
Cool. So hi guys again. So as I mentioned, I would be talking about product security response today. And so vulnerability management is kind of second name we give it, I guess. One of the reasons which I have discovered is because we are normally, product security response is sometimes confused with cyber security incident response. So they are not the same. So we just want to, make it known that it is about vulnerabilities in products. So yeah, these are the two names which it goes by usually. And yeah, I already introduced myself. So this is the Twitter handle which I just mentioned about. So you could follow me. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't use it so much. So you can still, connect with me. I'm cool with that. Okay, so what can you expect from this session? So this is not going to be a completely technical session like how usually security technical talks are. This is going to be more of me sharing my knowledge on product security response, how they work. So you don't need any security expertise as such. And we will be mainly looking at the significance of having such teams in an organization, right? And probably because I work in such a team, you might also get to know about some behind the scenes tasks, like how things work out in such teams. And motivation, probably what I would be happy after this session is that if you are looking to have such a team in your organization, or if you are a small company who is looking to build something out of your organization like such a team, probably I hope that this gives you some tips and all of that. So that is how I would hope it works. And yeah, if you're a listener, if you're joining in, if you're from a PSERT of your organization, I would love to exchange notes. I'm always looking to meet up with people from different organizations who are in the same role for sure. Okay, so a little disclaimer. I would be presenting my views and not really speaking on behalf of my organization, which is SAP. And the response methods which I would be explaining are like best practices probably from my experience, and not a framework to be taken as a definition or anything. This would be just my sharing of knowledge. And I am very used to saying you or your a lot in my explanations. So when I say that, it's not like a personal, you, it's more of I'm talking collectively. So just a disclaimer about that. And in product security response teams, bug bounty is a very integral part as well, but I would like to keep it out of scope because I think that it deserves a session in itself, because it is something to spend time on. So we will keep just that part out of scope today. Okay, so we will look at a scenario now. So say there's a security researcher. So when I say security researcher, in very common terms, they are, we also call them hackers. But mostly in the industry world, we refer to them as security researchers. It could be you if you are a researcher as well. And they're usually bug hunters who find issues out of, they would either be part of an organization which finds vulnerabilities in vendor products, or they could also be individual researchers, out of hobby also they could be doing it. So all of these constitute security researcher in my context here. So say there's a researcher who finds a vulnerability in a product. Okay, so what would I do if I was one such researcher? I would want to be, I would want that vulnerability to be fixed, right? For sure. So what I do as a researcher is go on internet and try to find a place of like probably a website of that vendor where they have listed an email ID to which I can report the issue to. So I don't find anything. I don't see any email ID, any form, anything mentioned there. So what I do is I just go to their general website. Probably they have a contact us kind of a email ID mentioned there. I will just send it to that email ID. Right. So this is not a security specific email ID, probably something like support@xyz.com. Now, on the other side, the team that receives this vulnerability, what they do is they are not security experts. They are probably a support team or, someone who answers general queries or receives general questions from the customers. So they don't know what to do when a vulnerability is reported in the organization. If it's sent, they also don't know who to send it to, because it's not their job, right? So now what happens is, after a long search in the organization, they talk to different people, they reach out to different people. Finally, they are able to find that particular development team which is responsible to fix that vulnerability, right? So now all that, so their job is done. The support team, they believe that their job is done because the team is reached out to and the development team starts working on their report. Meanwhile, the researcher is kind of frustrated because he or she did send the report. If I was a researcher, I send the report, but then I'm not getting any updates on what is happening to my report. I don't know. I reported a vulnerability, but I don't know what is happening with it. I didn't even get a notification from the email ID I sent to saying that, we have received your vulnerability and we are working on it. I just keep waiting. I keep asking for updates, but I don't get anything. But uh, things get done, job gets done, the vulnerability is fixed, and the vulnerability is, the fix is released in the latest version of that product, maybe. So things are okay, right? Because vulnerability is fixed. That is the end goal of everything. So job done, right? But not really, because many things could have gone wrong in this entire scenario. What are those things which could have gone wrong? First thing, the researcher did not find a proper email ID or any contact form which is specific for security of that vendor. So he or she could have just given up and then never reported it. Because if you don't get a proper email ID, you just give up, right? You don't go an extra mile and start to find a different email ID which could help or which could respond. So probably the vulnerability could never have been reported, and the product just remains vulnerable, which is bad. The second point is, an untrained team is knowing that, okay, fine, the researcher did report it. Now it went to a team which is not trained to handle such reports. And we and you, we are security experts, privacy experts. We know how these things are sensitive. We know that these things are confidential. And untrained teams don't know of it, so there's a high risk of such things getting, you know there's a high risk of it getting, you know uh, I don't want to say disclosed, but they do end up talking about it to other teams, and it's not good. Definitely it's not good. And yeah, meanwhile, researcher was getting frustrated. Probably they would also go for a public disclosure, obviously, right? If I'm not getting an update on something I sent to the vendor for their own good, then I would just go ahead and disclose it publicly. Or even I would, tweet about it, saying that this vendor had this vulnerability, no one responded, or there's no email ID existing anywhere. So this is what the issue is, and, report an exploit. So disclose an exploit, sorry. Yeah. So the last point is kind of it was subtle, if you realize in the last slide with the scenario. The issue was fixed, sure, but what if the product is something which required a customer's action to install the upgrade, right? A lot of times, sorry, we have applications on our phones or on our systems where we need to upgrade, like we need to click on that update button only then the installation is done. But I wouldn't do it if it's just some upgrade that's coming up. I am not probably very interested in the new features. But if I'm told that that new version has a security fix in it, then I would do it right away, right? So this needs to be explicitly made known by the vendor to their customers. This was not done. Hence, the customers who don't want to upgrade to the newer version would just remain vulnerable. So what is the solution PSRT, which is the topic of discussion right now. So how, this is a central team. PSRTs are central to the organization. They are only one. I mean, ideally, there should be just one PSRT in an organization. So in the next slides, I would be kind of telling the different things that we have to do, we do in order to ensure these hiccups don't happen, which I mentioned in the previous slide. Okay, so receive and track vulnerability reports, right? So the most important thing is receive the vulnerability and then also track it. So in order to receive, you need to have a very easily accessible public page. Okay, if I just type report vulnerability XYZ, then it needs to give me a clear result on Google or any search engine that you're using, right? So this email ID probably or a reporting form should be easily accessible, not in some sub pages of a website of that vendor or anything. It should have a dedicated page. And what else needs to be mentioned in that page is the minimum information expected in a report. Because like if you just say email to this email ID with your report, probably you'll just get a random email report, right? Like privilege escalation in XYZ. But you don't get any details. So you need to mention that you need a proof of concept, you need to know which version that issue exists in, and all of those specifications you would need in order to go back, reproduce it, and then fix it. And defining a disclosure policy, this is important because as I explained before, we are working with security researchers which are not hired by the company. They are not they are not legally bound. They have not signed an agreement or anything. They are just working out of probably interest, or they just want to find bugs and report, and that's how it works. So in that case, it's good to have a policy mentioned where we say, okay, till we fix the issue, don't disclose publicly. Or even if we have fixed the issue, probably wait for some time so that the customers upgrade to the fixed version and then you disclose. So based on experience, I can say that this kind of policy definition helps a lot, because the researchers know expectations from the vendor. They also really oblige to it. They also let us know that, okay, fine, we will wait for it. Of course, we would want the customers to be secure, right? So, and the last one, request for reports via encrypted emails. Have an option for researchers to send you information in an encrypted manner. But this is important because you're dealing with, you know, someone who is outside of your company network. So it's outside your safe zone that your organization has created for you. The network is external, right? So always make sure that encrypted mail communication is there. And if you are doing it, then you also need to make the public key very easily accessible. Probably have it in the same page or portal where you are, mentioning the form or email ID and all of that information. So this is important. And from experience, again, researchers use it. If you have it available, researchers will use it. So it's important to make this happen. And okay, so now the report is received. Now you need to track. So it's always important to track these things, because we might be receiving multiple reports from different researchers. So, and we would also be dealing with different development teams probably, because not single development team will not always be working on different things. They would be obviously different, working on different things, right? So yeah, have a tool. Like usually if the company is kind of medium or large, they always have these ticketing systems and all of that. So either use those, the existing ones, or have your custom built, so that that report is tracked in a particular place. The development team is able to come there and have a look, comment on it if there's something, make that exchange, so that you have a log of everything, all the communication, right? And probably you have many development teams, as I mentioned. So probably that it's good to have a component assigned to them, like an ID assigned to each development team, so that whenever you receive a report, you analyze, you see that, okay, this development team is responsible, you just assign it to them. So usually this is how most of the ticketing systems work, but it's important to have it when you are dealing with vulnerability reports as well, to make it very consistent and organized. So now the next thing is you need to identify the risk of that vulnerability, right? What would that vulnerability do to your product and probably the landscape in a customer's side? So how we can do it is rate it. Um, the most commonly used one, which we follow, is the CVSS system, which is which expands as Common Vulnerability Scoring System, and it is defined by FIRST, which is again expanded as a Forum for Incident Response and Security Teams. Okay, I got it right. Okay, so the first defines CVSS. So there are different versions that they come up with every now and then. It is updated. So in this scoring system, different vectors are used. For example, they have many vectors, like, is it possible via network? Is that exploit possible via network? Are there any privileges required? What is the impact to confidentiality, integrity, availability? So all of these different vectors are there. So all you need to do is, because you know the vulnerability now, how the vulnerability exists in the product also, so you just need to select the right vectors, and it has a formula, and it generates a number for you. So 10 is the highest, it's the most critical, it's the highest CVSS score possible, and 0 basically means that it is not impacting anything, so it's basically not a vulnerability as such. So 0 to 10 is the score that is given. So it is very I mean, rating a vulnerability is important, but CVSS makes it very easy for us to rate it very efficiently. And based on this rating, it's good to have categories of priorities, because we as security experts, when we see a vulnerability, we'll be like, okay, you have to fix it as soon as possible. But we also need to look at it practically from the development team's point of view, that probably the one that is of highest rating, the critical one, needs to be fixed immediately. Probably the ones which are of low criticality or low priority, they can take some time. It's okay, right? So if we have such kind of priority based categorization, then it will, make it more easy, make it more efficient for us to prioritize the fixing timelines. So have a timeline, probably like shortest time could be 10 days, 2 weeks, 1 month. It depends on how your products are, like how dynamic or how fast the releases in your products are. Okay, now coming to the advisories. So we saw in the last scenario that um, there was nothing really told to customers, that it was not told to the customers that there's a security fix being released in the latest version. It is important because the customers need, if this is mainly in cases where the customers need to install that, right? So the best ways to do is, and which is normally followed by most organizations, is have an advisory. So this advisory mainly contains information about textual information about the vulnerability, what are the impacts, and some details about how to install the fix maybe. So these kind of detailed information is mentioned, and it is important that there's a fixed format. So mostly these processes that we have in response teams is very customer centric. Because end of the day, if you are a product, that is getting manufactured, it is for a customer, right? So we need to have fixed formats so that the customer has a consistent view. Like it should not be like one advisory has the description somewhere in the top, and in the next month in your second advisory it is somewhere in the middle. So it has to be very consistent. And you need to inform about the risk of not upgrading or not patching or not installing the patches, right? So because if you don't do that, probably they will delay it and then they will keep the systems vulnerable. So it's always advised to have that risk known, that risk should be made transparent. And have patch days. Okay, so this is very relative because not all companies would want to go for patch days, but probably I could talk for my company, which is SAP. We have patch days. We have a patch day Tuesday, like some other organizations out there. The need, why do we do it? Why do we have a patch day? Is mainly because we would have many products which are getting released in a span of probably we are releasing a lot of fixes for many products, say of our company. So we would not want the customers to go and have a look at it every other day. So we want to make it more aligned so that the customer just has to come on that one day and then apply those plan for applying those patches. So this is normally followed, but even otherwise having multiple releases in a month is also there, which is good because if you have any critical ones coming up, then they can also be released in multiple days. But it's useful for a customer if you have a defined day for it. They usually, if the customers are other organizations, then they prefer to come to you only for one particular day. Okay, so now communication with researchers. This is kind of interesting, and because as I said, we don't have a legal bound. We are not legally bound with our customers, right? Sorry, we're legally bound with our researchers, right? So they are kind of doing the vendor a favor by reporting it responsibly. So it becomes the vendor's responsibility to make sure that they are updated about the progress, tell them what is happening. If in case you need some information, ask them. So this kind of to and fro communication is very important. And so as I said, bug bounty is kind of not in the scope of this session, but there are also like companies which may not have the policy to give swags or give monetary benefits. It's against the policy sometimes of the company. So in that case, the least that the companies can do is have a hall of fame or an acknowledgement page where you just list down the names of the researchers who have contributed to make your product secure, so that they can at least take it back and probably they can link it in their profile in social media and they get some credits there, right? So that is one thing that is the least thing I would say we can do from the vendor side. And discuss about plan disclosures. So if in case the researcher has a disclosure planned, know about it. And if they have a conference talk, know about it. Ask them. They are people. You can just have a conversation about it. Why it is important is that say there's a blog planned, say there is a disclosure planned, you need to know that the content that is going in it is correct, right? Because it should not contain information that is probably it could also be like there's a certain part of vulnerability which you have fixed, but it is is being talked about in the blog or the conference, and maybe it might end up becoming a zero day for you. So you don't want that. So it's always good to know if they are talking or writing about it, and probably ask for a draft of it or ask for some information about it so that you know. And in case they're talking about something that is already fixed, then if you know the draft, you can at least tell them, say they have not included your advisory details in it. For example, in SAP, we have something called security notes. So I would, from PSRT, we would want that security note number to be mentioned. Otherwise, it might just seem like, the vulnerability is talked about, but what about the solution? It might seem like it's still an open vulnerability, but it is not, because we have fixed it. So then we can just ask, okay, so can you just link the security note number there? Then yeah, 100% of the times they would definitely agree to it, because they have worked on it, they have made that fix happen. And yeah, one more is more of a suggestion from my opinion, is that avoid automatic responses, because it's kind of, we are in the time when we want to automate everything to save time, but typed messages are very much appreciated. And with that, you kind of build a kind of a relation with the researcher. So say there's a time when after some time you identify, you analyze that the issue is not a vulnerability, it is something else. So you will have already established a certain communication with the researcher, so you can at least explain to them why that issue is not a vulnerability or something like that. So it's always good to have that kind of typed email conversations. And the last one is very important. Have security experts dealing with the communication. Don't have a middle person. This is again based on my opinion, that don't have any middle person. Like, the researcher sends something, and then the middle person is like, okay, let me get back to you after talking to the experts, security experts. You should be communicating as a security expert, because it kind of gets annoying when the conversation does not happen in the security language. I'm very sure you know what I mean when I say that. So the researcher needs to know that you are knowledgeable enough to understand and analyze and respond back to the researcher in that language of security, in the technical terms. So yeah, that is one more. So it's very interesting that this portion of this portion is kind of very important in a PSRT. Communication is very important in PSRT. This is not security technical, but it constitutes, or it kind of designs the whole PSRT. Like, we stand on the basis of communication most of the times. Now, coming to an extraordinary situation that could happen, probably a zero-day disclosure, probably a blown up media attention. So when I say 0 days, so it's all panic situation, right? Everybody's asking about it. You're being written about it in the media, and people are questioning you. So the main thing to do is don't panic. You have processes which are strong, and make sure you follow them. Follow the protocol that you have in your company. Main thing for you as the security expert would be to analyze. So all this time in the scenarios before, we saw that the researcher was giving you a POC because they were responsibly disclosing it to you. But now it becomes the responsibility of security expert in the PSRT to find or analyze that exploit, and then create a proof of concept by yourself, understand the vulnerability, and then go and explain it to your development team. And it is important that the development teams are involved in this right from go, because they need to understand how escalated the situation is, because it's impacting the company, probably even financially. And the fix should be as quickly as possible, in days. It cannot be more than a week. I mean, week is a lot, but still it cannot go for too long, right? And the third point is very important. Keep your executives informed. I cannot stress this point enough, because executives are the ones which are, the top layer. Media houses will always ask them the questions, and they need to know of the situation. They need to know what has happened. So instead of waiting for the executives to come to you for information, have a very detailed timeline. make sure there's a document where you have mentioned what happened, when this you got to know this, what is the issue, what is the situation, how are you dealing with it right now, what is the plan. So all of this, if you provide them in proactively, then they will be able to deal with all those media attention in a very smooth manner. This again helping the company, right? And yeah, this the last point is kind of interesting again, because media teams of an organization, especially in certain levels of organization, the media teams are always there. Like we need some media activity will be going on, non-security also. So it's good to be in contact with them, because in certain situations like this, it's the media that is creating everything, right? They are making it all hyped sometimes. So we can sit with them, the media team. We will give the facts. The experts, security experts, will give the facts. They use their communication, English, whatever knowledge, and we can come up with a statement along with them in order to give factual information to the media houses. This is important because all this time during the hyped situation, the public was knowing only about the from the researcher or hacker's point of view, the one who disclosed the zero day. But in this case, you're balancing it out by providing your facts from the vendor. It always helps the customers to know how we are dealing with it, right? So this is also an important point. So I can tell that most of the times, especially in such extraordinary situations, um, 20% is where we are working on the technical side of it, the analysis, the fix. 80% of the times we are dealing with communication. It's most of the situations are like this. Yeah. So now beyond response, so we now saw how response teams are dealing with reports from external side, but also know that PSRTs are central. They are one a team in the organization who are receiving external reports. But of course, if you have applications, you have done a good amount of analysis before going to the production as well, right? So you would have done your threat modeling, you've done your code analysis, vulnerability assessments, penetration tests, everything is done. Of course, we all do it. But still there is someone external who is able to find vulnerabilities. So PSRTs are those teams which will know like a holistic view about something like it, right? So we will be able to identify a pattern. Probably one part of application is getting many vulnerabilities reported, or probably one kind of vulnerability is getting reported multiple times. So we know this kind of pattern. So we can actually do a root cause analysis, know why this is happening, and probably reach out to our colleagues, our other security experts who are into testing, and tell them that, okay, this is what we see, this is the pattern we see. Why don't you go back and then have a look at it in this way? So this is important because it reduces the number of external reports coming in, because we would be handling it internally. And yeah, I mean, this kind of helps in a lot of ways. So um, this is kind of going beyond response, but you are helping your organization, because end of the day we all want to work on making our products secure, right? Okay, so now I'm almost done on the concluding note. What I would like to give as pointers is follow frameworks for defining processes. We have first out there who has a framework already, and even after we define a process, it's always good to go back, analyze the process, keep maturing it every now and then. And it is important for security experts in a PSRT to stay updated with the latest security vulnerabilities, because um, say there's a new vulnerability type discovered out there, so usually researchers will always be excited to try it out in different products, so they will keep looking for the same vulnerability everywhere, and probably you will keep getting more of those issues reported. So we need to know what it is and how to analyze it, more information about it, and stay updated about it, and have a good collaboration with collaboration model with the development teams and security teams in organization. It's when you are working in a organization, it's always about the teamwork. So it's not like we send reports and dictate things to development teams. It never works. It should not be like that. It should always be a collaboration model. And okay, the last one is kind of interesting, especially if you have consultants at customer side. So there would be sometimes security consultants who would be working with customers to upgrade their systems and all of that. So talk to them, because they will give you a customer's point of view, because you would always be working on one side. You are releasing your fixes are released, it's all one sided. But if you, end of the day, we are all working for the customers better experience. So get their perspective also known to you by talking to such consultants in your organization. And I would tell you, it would be a very interesting conversation too, because you'll get to know a lot of things from how customers think about the fixes that you're releasing, advisories you're releasing. It's kind of a feedback that you would also get to work on and make things better. So yeah, so these are just some resources that might be useful, which I have already mentioned in the previous parts of my presentation. Probably I have not linked it here, but you can still Google it. PSERT framework by FIRST is a very good place to start if you want to start understanding and knowing about such teams. And CVSS is something I would say any security expert should know. This is not just related to PSRT for sure. This is any security expert, if they are aware about CVSS scoring system, it's very useful. And yeah, that ends my presentation. Thank you. And if I know that this is not really a live session, but if we do have questions, then I'm open for it.
Great. Thank you so much, Aditi. That was really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
Can you share the screen wherein people can reach out to you on Twitter or any other place?
Oh,
Any
yes.
questions?
Yes. Sure. Just a second. Oh, I'm just doing manually. Okay, this is my ID at Aditi_Kulkarni. So that's my Twitter handle. So you can reach out to me. I am quite active on Twitter. So yeah.
Or you can follow her.
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter. And LinkedIn, you can just type Aditi Kulkarni. I'm very sorry, but I am very late in responding to things on LinkedIn, but I will ensure if I ever see, I will definitely respond to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. It was a great session. We look forward to your presentation. You can share it with us and we can share it forward, or you
Yes.
can tweet your deck so that people can check it.
Yeah.
And now I would like to invite Deveeshree to take over and introduce yourself and then about your session.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deveeshree. Initially, I introduced myself, but here I am again. I'm a faculty at University of Washington, Tacoma. I teach cybersecurity and information technology as well. And I am an information security researcher, and I do have diverse background. Today in this session, I'll cover risk analysis. So risk analysis in general in information security, not risk analysis like financial risk analysis, because when we talk about risk analysis, there are different contexts. I would like to share my screen. Vandana, give me a thumbs up if you are able to see. Is it good?
Yeah, it's good. I see it.
I think so. Now so hello everyone. As we mentioned, like risk analysis, I'm a part of OWASP member and getting involved more and more, and I'm also part of like Women in Information Security. So this is my introduction if you see, I'm a woman in cybersecurity, a technologist, and an educationist. Because I teach, I'm passionate about teaching and spreading the word in cybersecurity. My educational background is in information system, criminology, and computer engineering. My hobbies includes I love to read, as you say, reading, and I love to explore traveling. Even if I am in information security, I love to explore more. I'm an advocate of cybersecurity education, and I always try to more spread equality and diversity in information security. My objective of this talk is more risk in information security, important steps we cover in risk analysis, discuss several examples, and how we can reduce risk by several steps, and what are the steps needed based on the organization we need, and what are the things we have to take related to information security. So what is risk in information security? So this definition is my understanding of the risk in information security. It's a type of situation which involves extreme danger. When I'm talking about extreme danger, it's more about network because we are connected in this world, an extensive amount of unrecovered loss. When I say extensive amount of unrecovered loss, it means that the loss we are talking about can be financial, can be psychological, can be anything which is leads to a situation where we ended up with having severe unrecovered loss. And if there is a cyber attack happens, the loss can be unimaginable. It's not only financial loss, it's data loss, it's information loss. We don't know who did it, how did it, and how to address it. So that's why the definition of information security risk is very important to understand. A situation, how to avoid. Risk analysis can help us to evaluate a risk and also may avoid the future attacks as well. Before we go proceed, I would also like to mention that this presentation is my personal presentation, and my organization is doesn't share my opinion on this. What is risk analysis? If we see the risk analysis is a systematic examination of the component and characteristics of risk. This definition is by Department of Homeland Security, DHS, Lexington from 2010 edition. This definition is followed by DHS United States because the systematic component of examination of an organization, of a network, is very important to make it cyber attack free, to make it a strong organization which is information security is very, very strong. It's difficult to attack. Systematic test of information security analysis gives us a status report that where we are at and what we are ready to do and how much cost it will take if we want to take it to a next level. So it is very important that every organization, starting from small business scale to large Fortune 500 companies, do systematic risk analysis. And every organization is different when they do risk analysis, because the risk controls what they want to do it based on organization and the number of employees and the number of departments they have. So it is risk analysis for a small business scale having 3 people is very different than risk analysis for a Fortune 500 company continues 100,000 employees. So there are a couple of things I will be covering in my next slides, which is in general, where organization can follow while they're conducting risk analysis. So the first important point is understanding and assessment. So when I'm talking about understanding and assessment, it means that understand, is there a risk? It's very important that we need to understand that is there a risk to particular information we are using, and if we are using, who have the access, and if they have the access, are they trustworthy? Do we have the confidence the data we are using? Do the data has integrity? And then, like, do we have the availability? Understanding the risk and where we are at, what control we are using, what steps need to be taken is very, very important in a risk analysis. Another thing as well, when we are trying to do is risk assessment. So after understanding the risk, based on the organization we work, or based as an information security professional, if things has been assigned to us to conduct a risk analysis, then we have to understand that where should I start. So we need to have a general understanding what we are doing and where we should start. So that's what I mean understanding means. Like, there should be a beginning point or starting point, and there should be an ending point. For example, starting from your team. So if you don't have a security team, for example, as a small scale business, start what our business concentrated on, who are our clients, and what information security guidelines we need to match, or we need to make sure that our clients needs it. So that being said, we have to, after understanding the security in general, or like, risk in general, then we have to conduct a risk assessment. And when I say risk assessment, it has to be overall risk assessment based on the company standards and based on the global standards if it is a global company. Additionally, if it's not an international company, then it follows a country information security standards, which every company based on that particular zone has to follow. For example, in the United States, if you're starting a business, there are some registration process a person or a owner has to do, and they also fulfill some information security standards as well. So those risk assessment needs to be done, that whether the standards are met or not, and if the standards are met, where there is a loophole. So assessment is generally a checklist, and to provide that we have this and we do not have this. And if we are using personal information, if our company focus on personal information, then like email and healthcare information, if we kind of collect, how we are using it, who we should report, all these things, it will come up in the risk assessment session. People generally ask, or the question may come, that why it is important to understand a risk if I'm a security expert and I'm information security and I can just go and fix the issues within the network and where it is. It is very important to understand the risk based on how much investment we need to provide in an information security if an attack has happened, or if the attack is about to happen, or for the future. Assessment actually provides us a view of, it's like a kind of a dashboard or like a pie chart, to put it into perspective, that suppose we have $100,000 US dollars, and how do we invest in our security company and security in that company, and what we should invest. Should we invest educating people, our employees? Should we invest buying softwares or building infrastructure, or should we go to the cloud or private cloud, public cloud? So assessment actually provides us the more broader picture that where should we make the investment, and also how we do the investment in what category. So understanding and assessment of risk is very important. Then we will be switching. The second point is identification. What the identification means is identifying the risk. So first we understood the risk, we kind of have an assessment, and then we go dig deeper. How do you identify the risk? Based on, as a professional, like information security professional like I and you, or people who are interested in risk assessment and become a career in risk assessment, they need to have some knowledge, technical background, social science background, and also go through some risk control. When I say risk control, based on what type of risk we are looking at, there are several laws. For example, here in the United States, HIPAA guidelines, every organization who are using medical records or who are using medical documents, they have to follow. Educational organization like universities, we have to follow FERPA guidelines. FERPA guidelines means like students' information cannot be shared without their permission. Apart from that, there are other PCI, payment card industry standards. So those are the standards every organization needs to follow. When I'm talking about identifying the risk, based on those standards, we have to analyze that where our risk at. Suppose I am working in a organization, giving an example, where credit card organization, credit cards takes people's personal information, they have financial information, they have social security numbers. In that case, if my company is dealing with purchasing or like people try to buy from the website, then we are actually dealing with credit card information as well. So we need, while we are doing risk analysis, we have to find out what are the risks of using a customer's credit card, and what are the information we do have, and how we are using it, and what are the risks available, or what are the risks they are opening to, and whether we have sufficient resources to protect, to cover issues like a person's personal information. So while we are doing analyzing the risk, we need to figure it out. What are the operations, how those our customers' personal information has been stored? If those are stored, where are they protected? If it will be hacked, do we have the backup? So we need to identify the matrix of different format and write different controls. As I mentioned before, every organizations have risk assessment and risk analysis differently based on the organization, like 5 people, 500,000 people. But identifying the risk controls are different, but there are certain things we have to be, it's similar, which is identifying the risk. What are the risks more, is it informational risk? Is it more network risk? Is it, if this network, what category of network we are opening to, and what damage we already have done if we are under attack, and from where we should start stopping. So those are the things are we generally trying to cover in while identifying the risk. Then we are coming to estimation. So when we already identified, we are talking about estimation of the risk. It is very important that we provide estimation of the risk, because it is, we need to have a financial estimation, the cost of risk we are open to. For example, if I have a software company and I provide software to other organization, educational organization, and other big companies. At that point of time, if I would like to do a risk analysis of my company, the software I provide, risk analysis of the software, at that point of time, I have to make sure that my software are secure. Also, what are the, after the risk analysis, if I found that there are some risk, like hardware risk, software risk, then how much I have to invest in that risk. For example, there is a loop fault in my hardware. If I'm selling computers, if on the software node, there is like in the testing mode, I found that my software becomes slow after certain GB of memory used. Or if there are 5 or like 30 computers are connected to a virtual machine, or which I am providing a software, then it actually reduces the speed. What are the how much I should invest? So an estimation of the risk, or if it will go to the customers, then it will be a bad idea to use it. So to estimate that risk and how can we burden that risk and be in the market, or should we just have to call it off our product, or should we have to call it off when it's a government perspective of estimation of risk, like cyber attacks between different countries, or when it is involves different geographical location. The estimation gives us a broader picture that what we should proceed and what we should not proceed. If we proceed, then we have a safe, we are in the safe side, and if we proceed, then we have to lose something. So in that way, estimation of the risk provide a overall view what should be done and what we should not be doing. Next is implementation. So as we can see, so far we have covered understanding assessment of a risk, then identify what are the risks is for an organization, and then estimate what we should be doing and should not be doing. This is may sound like conceptual, but when a cyber attack happens, you can read different articles, especially like you can go to Department of Homeland Security United States website. There are so many examples that if the risk analysis would have done, then the cyber attacks could have gone in a different way based on different organization. You can see like different news follow different cyber attack news, that if there should have a risk analysis, then there should not have a cyber attack, because risk analysis actually opening up where there is a loop fault within the network, within the organization, or within the leadership. Because risk analysis actually a combined approach. It's not a individual approach that, oh, I am a risk analyst, so I will just do the analysis and give it to the company and done. No, this is a combined approach of leadership and employees of the organization and the clients as well. When we are talking about educational organization, risk analysis involves all students, all faculties, all everybody who work in that particular organization. So it's a diverse approach with a diverse background. Because if I say that, oh, I'm coming from cybersecurity background, then only having technical mind and technical background doesn't help. To form a risk analysis team, and we need different people's contribution coming from criminology, coming from social science, social engineering, software engineers, cybersecurity analysts, security engineers. So it's a combined approach to conduct a risk analysis. Next, once we did the estimation, we need to have an implementation. When I talk about implementation, it means that what are the implementation approaches we need to provide. For example, if it's a cyber attack on the networks we are analyzing, then what implementation approach, what software patches we need to update in our computer so that we can avoid future attacks. If attack has not done, then we have to study these different past attacks, their signatures, their digital signatures, and have a plan layout and continuous monitoring system. Big organizations have their SOC called Security Operations Center. So they continue monitor attacks 24/7, 365 days a year. It's not a single moment. It's not that it's not recorded. It's always monitored. So it means that they track all types of attack, even if there is a slowdown as well. Many times is that it can be a false alarm, but we cannot avoid a false alarm just to think that it cannot be a cyber attack. So implementation approach is like that. If you are a small company, cannot afford to build a security, maybe you'd like to have a security control and risk analysis, prepare a report, and kind of implementation approach means your network has to be secure. Physical security is really important, because many times we focus on technical security so much that we forget about physical security. Physical security is vital, because if a cyber attack person follows the social engineering strategy, then they need to first access to those computers. So if they do not have the access, then it will be difficult. So physical security is extra added layer to it. So the implementation approach may be considered as a physical security first, then network security, and the third is people needs education, that like they can deal with incident response as well. And with this incident response, they can actually deal with any kind of attacks is happening immediately, so that like they can stop to propagate other networks if attacks happens. Now evaluation. So as we mentioned, like, we went through understanding of the risk, and then risk assessment, risk identification, risk estimation, and we implemented based on our knowledge, the approaches and everything. The evaluation approach actually provides that what we should evaluate and what we should not evaluating. Evaluation approach provides us a broader picture that what we did before, is it there something we need to add? It's like according to me, it's like an agile approach that again study from starting to ending. That it's like a testing method in software development lifecycle, that we need to test our code, that our software is working fine or not. The risk analysis doing evaluation means we have to provide, again, go through the circle, that where did we miss? If we miss, what did we miss? So risk evaluation mentioning that, our network is strong, our information are secure wherever it is at, we are following all standard guidelines, everything is checked. Many times we say that, well, if we have like gone through all the talking points of risk, then evaluation is just a report. No, evaluation is another way of mentioning that we are going back and recheck everything, that we are okay with what our risk analysis is done, and providing a report to leadership. Leadership, when I'm talking about leadership, mean executive level, who take a decision that after they see the evaluation report, what to be done, not to be done. The risk analysis, as an information security team, as a person, you may not have the authority to take a decision. Evaluation provides your conclusion to the leadership team, to the executive level team, that these are the threats we have, these are the risks we can take, these are the costs we can use to protect future attack. As we covered with the evaluation of risk assessment, that's what I mean, that it's a report with the categorized for the leadership team to understand. Another thing, we have to make sure that risk assessment is not about you, it's about whether executive team are able to understand or not. So the assessment, the evaluation report has to be in such a manner that people can understand, the executive level can understand, and it should be very presentable, and it will be very analyzed and very presentation fashion, that there should not be any information security jargon, because many executives, executives who are not from technical background, they have to understand in a simple words. So So when a person of information security background doing risk analysis and they're providing a report, it should be very much corporate environment, and based on their executive level, the report should be organized. Now we finally came to the decision-making process. So decision-making process are the people who does decision-making. After the risk analysis, you provide your report and found out and deliver to the decision-making process. So decision-making process is done by executives. The executive can be your CISO, including CEO, CIO, everybody which is the C first, and they will be able to make a decision that what needs to be taken and what money should be invested, and what things we can go strategize. So decision-making process is kind of a collective approach. As I mentioned, it's a collective approach, and diversity background people take a decision. It's very important that decision-making process should be focused towards information security and evaluating the risk and address those risks, because having the risk analysis and focusing towards addressing the risk actually solve the problem and can avoid future attacks as well. So there are a couple of things that so far we analyzed how to do risk analysis, but we also provide like how can we reduce risk. There are a couple of suggestions. We can provide training and education to our employees. Make sure that they every month they are taking trainings, and we also reminding them by helping them quizzes, interactions, more about like talking in an environment, because many times when it's a more visual interaction, then people remember things, then just open the class and start teaching like school children. Many times it's more interactive, more activities oriented. Then implementing policies. We need to provide that every organization has to have some standard policies. The motto should be security focused. In that way, we can reduce risk as well. Having an agreement with organization. When I say having an agreement, it means that if we have partners, then we should have a security agreement that if we are sharing information with them, with our clients, then how they're going to use it and how they're protected. Do they have security team? If they have security team, how they approach it? Who have access to the information? All these questions needs to be answered. Timely testing is the last point. It means that we always make sure that we are testing every a month, or like a time period, like every 3 months. Passwords are set. There are strong passwords, which also covered within the training in the training and education to employees. These are the steps. If we take, then we end up reducing the risk significant amount. So my talk summary of today's talk is, after this talk, you will have a broader knowledge of how you should proceed with your information risk analysis. What are the steps, important steps, and how it varies with several examples, like if you have a small organization doing risk analysis, or if you're a large organization, and how do you approach by reducing the risk. Thank you. If you have any question answer, I'm open to now. So here you have my contact information, my email address, and my Twitter. When you can email me, but also mention that where did you find my resource? So you have to mention in the subject line that you actually attended this talk or kind of got to see that, else I will not answer. And you can follow me on Twitter. As I'm an information security person, my Twitter is also protected. So you have to send me a request to follow up, and then I have to approve you. So you can reach out to me if you have any questions, or I'll be happy to help.
Really wonderful. I like the distinction and how you mentioned all the levels of security and all, all the layers, and as well as the team management, the real world Indian industry scenarios as well.
Thank you. I'm really honored to have this opportunity. Thank you, Vandana and Zoe, for this opportunity.
We're glad that you gave us a session. I remember 2 months back we met, and then we were discussing that how to get started, what all things should do, and I'm really glad to see you on the platform.
Thank you.
It would be live by tonight. It'll be there on the channel, so anyone can view it, and we'll start sharing it from via InfoSecGirls, WoSec, all of the platforms. Now, thank you so much. It was really a fruitful session. Please share your presentation with the people so that they can take a look at it. If you want to share it with us, we can share it further with all the participants who are part of this talk, or who couldn't join us today. It was a wonderful talk today by Aditi and Deveeshree. So next talk we have is next week itself. We have two wonderful speakers lined up for the session. One is on DevSecOps and Docker security, and the other one is on XXRF. So both the sessions, we have multiple things lined up. Then we will have a wonderful session from Shira. So stay tuned, and you will see a lot of sessions almost every week. We are lined up, and I'm really glad that that everyone is sharing their knowledge and want to be part of the bigger platform. And thank you so much for joining us today. It was really amazing. You can follow us on owaspwia, InfoSecGirls, WoSec. We all it's like one platform, but there are multiple channels. You can reach out to us on any of those. You can reach out to me, Zoe, Jessica, Loredana, Geeta, any one of us, and we will be able to help you out. We'll be very glad if you want to speak up and you want to share your knowledge. Just let us know, and we can set up some time on Saturday during the same timing, so that all the time zones can be covered. And like earlier, we'll try to be on the YouTube live so that you can ask live questions as well. You can follow us on the YouTube channel as well. For today, I think this is it. Feel free to reach out. That's what we would say. Also, a lot of people wanted to ask about the conferences. So we do provide conferences grants, and we try and get you the passes of the conferences. So keep a track on the channel so that you can avail the passes. It's always first come, first serve. Like if we had a pass for Black Hat, a Global AppSec DC, or any other thing, we keep sharing the information on the Twitter handle, LinkedIn, or the mailing list. You can subscribe to the mailing list so that you can be part of it. We won't be able to tell you one-to-one, but over the mailing list, everyone will just shoot out any new opportunity. People will share it on the mailing list. If you're not and you want to be part of it, drop us a note and we'll help you out with it. Thank you so much. It was great session today. Looking forward to seeing you in the next session.